Yeah, we're counting down. We are live right now on all the things, on Zoom, on IGs, on all the mediums and clouds. We have an audience online, and we have all of you. So we're going to kind of connect the worlds. Okay, so welcome to Future Arts Live, Episode 3. We are here with Tyler Thrasher and Terry Mudge. We're excited to be hosting our first Fireside Chat here in this beautiful building. It's called Washington 1000. It's this brand new state-of-the-art building developed by Hudson Pacific Properties. And here, we're in downtown Seattle. We're across the street from the convention center. It's a really beautiful time of day. We can see the sun setting in the back. And there is no more rain. It was raining this morning. Did you catch the rain?
We did catch the rain.
Okay, good. We're all watered. We are properly watered like we are in Seattle. So, yeah. Hello, audience. Hi. Hello. And hello, audience out there in Zoom and IGs and everywhere. So really quick, who am I and who are we? My name is Yulia Brook. I'm the founder of Future Arts. Future Arts is a women-led nonprofit in Seattle. We are also globally based. We have artists that we work with here, nationally, internationally. Our goal is to connect art, technology, and community to bridge better conversations like these. We have interactive shows, we have youth programs, but this is a really exciting moment where we can give space to interdisciplinary talks about technology, art, and nature. So a big special thanks to Sessions in Place, all of the amazing production team that's helping us and volunteering their time to make this beautiful production happen. Thank you guys, you're freaking amazing. Let's give a round of applause to them. Thank you. Yeah, so let's get right into welcoming our special guests today.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Tyler Thrasher. I am a self-taught chemist, botanist, artist, tinkerer. I grow opals for fun. I crystallize insects. I hybridize plants. I kind of collaborate with nature and just mess around in any way I can find fit in terms of collaborating with nature. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler, for being in Seattle. How's it been so far?
Amazing. I love Seattle.
Yeah.
It's been great.
It's quite something. It's been up and down, but that's how we like, layering and, ferries and water.
Lots of hills.
Lots of hills. Get your workout in. Yeah, it's been quite something. And so thank you for being here. Now let's introduce Terry Mudge.
I'm Terry Mudge. I'm the founder and scientific director of one of the few science shops in the world called Stem Cell in the city where we're from, Tulsa. And my background is in cryogenics and stuff like that. And I left that to start a science shop because it didn't exist, and I always wanted to just go in and buy science stuff. And so my job now is to basically find cool science stuff from around the world and present it to people.
Awesome. Yeah. So glad to have you here and talk about all of the interdisciplinary ways you have brought together this book with a lot of research. I think it was like a couple years worth of research plus the rest of your life.
Yeah, it was about a year and a half of research, editing, writing, and then probably all combined, around 2 years of rigorous work,
Yeah, well, we're excited to learn more and more from y'all as this hour continues. So the other thing that's exciting today is The Universe in 100 Colors is the name of your book. We see it here. It's beautiful. We also have a little fall leaf to remind us where we are in the, time of the seasons, and some water for us if we, start to talk a lot. The other thing is today we're launching our membership program, which is called FutureSparks, and we're doing this 100 Sparks as well. And the 100 Sparks was happening before you guys were even, coming through. So it was this serendipity that happened. Mm-hmm. And so this is a way that folks, we'll talk about it later, but it's a way that we're going to be doing regular programming like this, and it's a way for us to build that community and continue this work in Seattle and globally. So this also kicks off regular programs we're going to have in the Nest here. And so we're stoked to have that. And we'll be doing more of these next year and hopefully to come. So one thing about this talk is it's interactive. So we'll get to really know you guys and the Zoom audience. What does this mean? It means that we can get the Zoom audience into our room, and we have Anna back there, our co-founder, as our moderator. Hi, Anna. And you'll see her walking out. And I think we can maybe welcome folks online and see who's over there. Hey, Kathleen, welcome to the show. How's it going? Where are you calling from?
From Spokane, Washington.
Spokane. We love Spokane. It's really beautiful out there. Thanks for being here. Awesome. And we'll get to know the rest of y'all as time goes on. Okay, well, let's start talking about some colors.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this section is a little bit of myth busting. It's kind of, you guys opened the book with some of this. So we're gonna dive in to our speed round of myth busting to get our brains warmed up and talking about what is color and what do we perceive about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into our first myth.
So the first myth, pretty early on in the book, and one I like to just throw at people, is this idea that rainbows contain every color. We know that rainbows are Roy G. Biv. There's some debate on whether or not the I in Roy G. Biv should be there. That's a whole other conversation. But a lot of people think purple's in the rainbow. It's violet. Purple and violet are not the same. Violet has its own spectral wavelength. Purple does not. Purple is a mixture of blue and red spectral light, combined in either way in different ratios to make purple. When you see purple in a rainbow, it's actually two rainbows stacked on top of each other. Second one is called a supernumerary rainbow, and you're seeing the red light from the first rainbow overlapped on the blue light, or vice versa, to give the illusion of purple, not violet. Purple and violet are not the same.
What? Wild. Well, it does not contain every color. Myth busted.
Yep.
All right. Next myth, Terry.
So there's this common conception that red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. You mix them to make everything. Well, actually, it depends on what you're doing, because with light, red, blue, and green are actually commonly the primaries, and you mix those all together and make white and everything in between. And then if you're printing like with inks and pigments, you're actually using cyan, magenta, and yellow, and you mix all those to make blacks. So primary colors really just depend on what you're doing.
Wild. That is some wild myth busting right there. Okay, next myth, Tyler.
Okay, so a lot of people think that dark objects are hot, right? Like black surfaces are hotter, and that's usually attributed to the color black. It's kind of the opposite. It's not the color first that we start with. It's the structure of the substance or the molecules that make up why it's black. Different structures like carbon nanotubes and Vanta black, they're really good at trapping light. And that light gets trapped, it gets converted into heat, and less of that light escapes, giving it the color of black or giving it the appearance of black. So it's not that black things make things hotter, it's that things absorb light, trap light, they get hot, and then we see black because less of that light is escaping.
Oh my gosh, wild. We're already starting to morph our idea of everything around us. So wild. Okay. Next one, Terry.
So there's a lot of interchangeability that people use with the terms colors and hues and shades, but they have very specific meanings. For example, hues are all of your base colors. Those are the Roy G. Bivs, what you see in the rainbow. And then if you add black to any of those, you get a shade. And if you add white to any of them, you get a tint. And if you add a gray, a mixture of black and white, you get a tone somewhere in between. And all of these make up colors.
Whoa, that is wild. We just learned a lot of myth busting very quickly. Thank you for bearing with us. So the next section is going to practice how we're going to interact with our audience. So you guys just heard a lot of information, and we want to know which information you thought was the wildest, most surprising. So how we're going to do this is we are going to be working with something called Mentimeter. And the way you do that is, yes, take out your phones. This is a show where you take out your phones. We're redefining your relationship with your phones. And scan this code. And for those online, if you go to menti.com, you can put in this code. And it's a way for all of the audience members to vote and participate in this, in our stream. Because this is not a TED Talk. It's an interactive TED Talk. So it's, I guess, kind of a TED Talk. We're just upgrading it to be more interactive. So yeah, scan this Menti QR code and we can vote on which myth busted things open for you the most.
Which myth was the most busted?
Yes.
Best
Thank
busted.
you.
Best busted.
Thank you.
myth.
Okay, so let's see what happens here with everyone who is voting.
Purple.
So let's review our myths. We had the first one was
Not the rainbow doesn't
The
contain every
rainbow.
color, especially it doesn't contain purple.
yes. The second one,
Primary colors.
primary colors or not primary.
And then dark objects being hot because of the color, it's actually because they can absorb more light. Yeah.
Wild, and
And all of the terms that make up colors.
the hues and the terms. Violet. Okay, we're seeing some violet, purple. That's probably the rainbow one. It looks like a lot with the rainbow ones are resonating. People didn't know that the rainbow didn't contain all the colors.
That's why we busted it.
We busted that one. So it looks like information about the black absorbing the light. The one that the black, yep, that one was also wild. That's actually the one I had no idea about. So that's a really interesting one. Very cool. All right.
Very nice.
The
Yeah.
fact that the dark, yeah, I like how y'all are phrasing this. Rainbow does not have all the colors. Well, now we know. So we're all know a little bit more about the world around us. All right. Well, let's continue with our next question to get you guys.
I forgot.
We have to.
Oh my god.
Come on, we have
Oh
to.
my god.
Okay, people are already voting.
Oh my god.
Just some nostalgia, you know. We're here kind of like in a TRL-like moment, and we're talking about the dress. What can you all tell us about the dress? Let's talk about this while people vote.
So speaking of color terms, there's a name for this. It's called a metamerism, and it's whenever colors appear different under different lighting conditions.
Awesome. Yeah. What other things can you tell us about the way the issue happening here?
It's black and blue.
Well,
It's black and blue. It's just like fluorescent lighting, right? Like didn't we?
I see black and blue. I don't know.
Everyone sees black and
Some
blue.
people, though, I don't know if you're rebels.
I'm
or if
definitely
it's okay
white
to
and
encourage
gold.
rebellion
Wait,
here.
whoa.
I'm sorry.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
What?
white and gold.
There's no way.
For real?
There is a way. A lot of
Okay, they're
people see
busting
it that
their
way.
own myths.
That is what we never talked about this. We wrote a whole color book together, and we said we wouldn't put this in the color book, but you and I never had a conversation. Wow. We're on
Well,
opposite ends of this conversation.
Well, I mean, here you go. You're learning something.
Holy crap.
Well, let's
on.
talk about the color classifications and how you laid out the book. And,
Yeah.
You know.
So we worked really hard to classify all these colors. We have 100 colors in this book, and a lot of them cover a lot of different topics. We have colors that are emotional, that are historical, cultural, geological, celestial, all these different kinds. And we were like, okay, some are pigment-based, some are from minerals, some are from space, some are one single wavelength, some colors that like amethyst, it's not just one kind of purple. There's a whole breadth of purples and that amethyst makes up. And so we came up with this categorizing system where we have like fixed colors, contextual colors, terrestrial colors, celestial colors, stuff like that. And so there's a bunch of symbols next to every color in the book that denote kind of where they fall. But we came up with this really clever system.
Yeah, it's a very flexible system. There is no rigid way to do it. So we just did our best guess. And it's up to anyone to disagree or agree with us, but it gives you a pretty good guide on what's what.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, I'm really interested how you all came up with that and want to hear more, but let's take a poll from the audience based on all of these classifications that were all thrown out. Which one would you like to discuss and hear more about? So we've got our natural, human-made. You can call them out again.
Yeah, we got like natural, human-made, pigment/structural/luminous, cosmic/terrestrial, single wavelength /broad spectrum extra spectral, which extra spectral is a lot of fun. You specifically like talking about extra spectral colors.
Yeah, but we'll see what people want to hear.
I would. Oh, well, you're getting more votes on that now that you're. Yeah, Yeah, let's pump one of these up. Yeah, cosmic. I mean, cosmic. You can't go wrong with. I mean, like.
No, yeah,
we
it's the
always want
universe.
more. Yeah.
It's the universe.
Okay, are we good with the poll? Because it looks like we have almost a wave. Single
it's
wave
inching out.
is coming up. Anyone hasn't voted, it's your chance to break this tie. Or not tie, or to
Yeah, you could
raise is on.
overthrow
Still
Cosmic.
On. Still on.
I would vote Cosmic too. I mean,
Can we
mean-
throw our votes in too?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's see if you can.
Yeah, I'm down to talk about some cosmic/terrestrial
Okay.
colors.
I think we officially have a winner.
Cool.
So let's talk about the cosmic and terrestrial.
You want to tackle cosmic? I'll tackle terrestrial.
yeah.
do it.
So a lot of the colors that I specifically was excited to talk about in this book were from the deepest reaches of outer space. Some of them are very specific to various planets. Some of them are galaxies, quasars. One of them is actually hydrogen alpha, which is a very specific wavelength that fills outer space. Everywhere where there's hydrogen, you find this color, and it's very useful for astronomers, and it's super interesting.
Whoa, that's wild. I wish we could all just go to outer space and experience it, but we will have lots of photos of all of these colors later.
I mean, if we were billionaires, we probably could just go.
I mean, we'll knock down the street. There's some people down there.
Yeah, Terry was really into the space colors. I was really into the earth colors. I'm a plant person. I grow crystals, and so a lot of the minerals came from my research and a lot of the plant stuff. So like anthocyanins, which is the molecule that makes plants black and purple and red. That's all terrestrial. Hydrangea pink. It's a flower that kind of acts as a pH indicator in your garden. That's terrestrial. It's kind of funny how that ended up splitting up. A lot of stuff was pulled from my garden and greenhouse, and a lot of stuff was pulled from your telescope and your science shop.
For sure.
Yeah, I love that. It seems like you're a good pairing and kind of balance each other out with, your technical and your fluid and
The black and blue and the white and gold.
I love that. That's really fascinating. I'm excited to see more photos as we're going to pull some photos from the book later for everyone to look at, and we'll have some books available as well. So it's a really gorgeous book. So
Thank you.
I know you guys did some photography of it from
Yeah.
like things from your garden and all that. So loved looking at it myself. So
Thank you.
yeah. Oh. Anyway, all right. So we warmed up with Mentimeter, and let's kind of dive in and get to know this content even better as we continue chatting. So we were thinking about this quote we really enjoyed, which is, at its heart, color is a form of communication. So what do you think about that, and how does that play into your research, and how is it communication? How is it that technology of communication? Oh, man. We'll try to stump you.
Yeah, I mean, sure, color is a form of communication. I mean, there's a lot of art forms that use color. Not all of them, but there are some art forms that use color, and the function of art is to communicate. It's to make observations about the universe, about the world around us, and to communicate it, either to yourself or to an audience. Also, color is in the visible light spectrum. That is just a tiny blip on the whole band of the electromagnetic spectrum, and we use things on the electromagnetic spectrum to communicate. And so it's just really cool that I think, sure, we can use all this to communicate. Ideas literally communicate messages, and then we come down this little blip that we can see with our eyes, and we can use that to translate an idea, to communicate feelings and emotions. I would agree that color, when in human hands, can be a form of communication.
To look at it. Yeah, Terry, did you have some thoughts on color as communication?
Yeah, I think technology is anything that makes our lives easier. And we didn't invent color, but we certainly use it to make our lives easier. Think about stoplights and things like that. I mean, we're transmitting a lot of information with just a single color.
Yeah, that's wild. I hope that we all, when we leave, we really think of the depth of where each color around us comes from. That's something we were talking about before, is that how is that transformed for you, the way that you see, color now after writing this book?
Yeah, I mean, once you spend a year and a half of your life working on a book, you do view color differently. You start to think about its origins, the science behind it, why we can even perceive certain colors. You can't help but have your mind sort of rewired about how you approach color.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm already kind of looking around, and we have all kinds of things emitting different colors and shapes, and we have some things in the background as well that have a lot of interesting colors. So we have something from Zoom. Is this a question? Oh, question from Zoom. Thank you, Zoom. Does color look differently in a vacuum versus through the Earth's atmosphere?
So this is a conversation we've had. I think it depends on what is in like Earth's atmosphere, because our atmosphere kind of changes. The particles, dust storms affect how light scatters through it. And so even that is sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of perspective based. One of my favorite fun facts that we didn't include in the book is that lightning can have any color in the visible light spectrum, and lightning can be two different colors to two different people observing it based on how far you are and what particles are in the atmosphere at the time scattering that light. So I think there's a lot of variables, like what's in Earth's atmosphere compared to what's in a vacuum in space, and then a beam of light that's propagating through that vacuum.
Wild. That is totally wild. Is there any other just shock? Many shocking moments when just lightning like that changed. Well, now I want to go just watch a lightning storm and imagine someone else might see it completely differently.
They could, yeah.
Right. So it's just a reminder, like perspective of everything all the time is different based on location, based on where you are, based on what's in the air. And I think that's very an artistic, nature is the original artist, right? So
I would also encourage everyone here after this and online to look up red lightning. Red lightning, it's also called sprite lightning. Really cool. Wasn't first photographed until the 1980s. And they look like these bright red jellyfish in the sky. And they're very sudden. It's very sudden. And there's a lot of citizen scientists contributing research to documenting and photographing red lightning. It's a pretty cool phenomenon.
That's amazing. Yeah, I looked it up last night, and it was pretty wild.
It's spooky.
You were saying
spooky.
It's kind of like jellyfishy, like alien. Yeah, it's very cool. And something that's really fascinating in your book is the idea of something unseen, or something beyond impossible colors, right? So phenomenon that exists beyond the visible spectrum. So how does working with these unseen colors challenge the way we think about technology's ability to expand our senses? So,
this one's right up my alley.
Okay, let's go. Let's hear it.
So this part of the color not the color spectrum, but the entire electromagnetic spectrum fascinates me, because there is so much more light out there that we can't see, but we can detect. We can invent technology that detects it. If you think about like the James Webb Space Telescope that just recently went up and it's making a ton of discoveries all the time, it's an infrared telescope. And so the pictures it takes has to be translated into visible light in order for us to see it. But look at all we're learning from this section of the spectrum that we can't even see.
Wow. Yeah, that's super wild. Yeah, to think about what else. I remember there's, talking about like also what different animals can see that we can't see. So it just makes you really consider the world around you and the other critters that can see different things. Was there any particular animal or, sense around that you want to share
Get this one.
in terms of invisible to humans?
So my favorite myth to bust, the mantis shrimp gets a lot of hype. There's a lot of, the mantis shrimp has several more cones, different types of cone cells in its eyes than we do. And there's a lot of people think that like mantis shrimp can see all these crazy colors that humans can't even fathom. The truth is that they are better at distinguishing singular wavelengths or really short bands of wavelengths, and that gives them the ability to react much quicker. So mantis shrimp are very fast at catching their prey, and that's because they can distinguish contrast and colors a lot quicker than we do. We are better at observing more variations in color, so more subtleties, like some shorter differences in wavelengths, so like more variations of green that are closer together, and mantis shrimp would miss that variation. So that extra computing time for us means that we have a slower reaction time than mantis shrimp. But yeah, like bees can see in ultraviolet. So when they look at flowers, they'll see all these patterns that react to ultraviolet light that we can't see. And sometimes these patterns kind of act like landing strips, so like lure in insects that can see them and be like a bullseye where they can land on them and get the pollen and cross-pollinate flowers.
That's super wild to think about how more isn't always a better thing, and we've all evolved differently. You know, different animals, we have evolved differently for different needs. So it's, you also think about contrast. What does that even mean? What makes contrast? Why do we have contrast in the world? So for some animals, it's a matter of life and death. Like, that's how they literally, live or die, or get, preyed upon or hide. So that's...
Yeah, I mean, contrast is really important. Even like we have like dark colors on dark colors. Like, imagine being in the savannah or out somewhere and there's some predator stalking you and you can see its silhouette against the dark like night sky. Like, it's important that we can distinguish contrast. Like, contrast keeps us alive.
That's really fascinating. And I think we also, just us as humans, have a very different relationship with color and the senses. And so, yeah, it sounds like we have someone on Zoom that wants to come in and ask you something.
Let's do it.
As well. So we have Michael on the line. Hi, Michael. You have a question for Tyler and Terry.
Hey, all right, everyone. So my question has to do with what Yulia was mentioning about unseen colors. I'm somebody who has red-green color deficiency, and it's really wildly affected the course of my life. I've always wanted to be an airline pilot. I've always wanted to work with the FAA. And turns out I was colorblind, and I didn't know this my entire life until I ended up taking tests. This entire time, I would have told you that I knew what colors red and green were. Turns out I had no idea. So I guess I've never seen what other people see as red or what other people see as green, like, at all, ever, because I can't pass any of the tests. Mm-hmm. So in talking about unseen color, how have you all in your experience noticed the differences in wavelength, how it affects people, and what have you been able to do in terms of your research and what you plan to do with this book to like help people see these differences?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. We got this question at last night's talk as well. There was a guest who was colorblind, and they were concerned about buying the book because they're like, how much of this book will I miss? And we did a really good job of not using color to describe color. We were, not like this green is green because it's very green. We talk about the history, the context. We talk about the impact, the cultural significance of these colors and the science behind them. So we do a good job of not using color to describe the things you're observing. There are pretty pictures, and there are people with color deficiencies and deficiencies in their cone cells that won't experience those images the same way the authors would.
Right, and we hit on that in the introduction, all about color deficiencies, and we broke down the difference of what the spectrum would look like with each cone being impaired and what someone might see in each one of those circumstances. And so we can address it, but there's only so much that we can do when we're making a book about color.
Yeah, we talked about, and I'm still in talks with this, about doing an audiobook version where we find creative ways to describe colors, but even that is based on each person. It's hard to use emotions to describe color because there's so many different cultural contexts when it comes to how we feel about color. So there is still a lot of work to be done on how we can make color accessible to those that can't perceive it the way the average healthy human eye can. But I think we did a good job in this book of making it as accessible as we possibly could, while still being respectful of those that can't really experience it the same way we could when we wrote it and selected the images in it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was going to say that when reading this book, it was a storybook. Like, it was very story-driven and history-driven, and I learned so much. And I was thinking how amazing that is, because we always try to do accessible programming here and think about all kinds of different approaches and senses. And reading this book, I was like, in a different time period. I was just like, sitting with the factory workers with like the poison arsenic. Like, I was really, it wasn't about the color, it was about the story. So I think as a book about color, it's probably for someone who's like colorblind or doesn't, maybe low vision, like, I would think, I mean, I'm not, so I can't speak for that, but I feel like the stories are just really powerful, and there's so much history, and we'll get into some like specific stories in a bit. So I appreciate the way you included that in your book. That was really cool.
And Terry and I were very open to suggestions. You know, if you're colorblind and you try to experience this book and you find it's lacking in some areas, or we didn't do a super great job of like making it accessible, you know, like if there's ever a second edition, we want to make those changes and we want to make it as accessible as possible.
I love that. Yeah. Well, always welcome to feedback and addition. So, yeah, and we'll have chats later. Looks like we have another Zoom question from Archana. So, Archana, let's hear what you have to ask.
Oh, sure. I was wondering about the blue R phenomena in analog photography, where you take photographs at a certain time of day around, I think just pre-sunrise or just post-sunset, and then the film kind of captures this intense blueness in photography, and I wondered what that was all about.
Yeah, I am not going to pretend like I know what that's about. My wife is a photographer, and I wish she was here. I am not a photographer, so I won't even try to guess and make a fool of myself here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll find something out relating to that later. I feel like we're also in that hour, maybe a little bit right now in the background. We see kind of a little blue in the air, but yeah, we'll see. We'll talk more about like what's in the atmosphere that affects color, maybe a bit later. I also wanted to. I mean, we will. Thank you all, studio audience, for being patient. You will have lots of time to also ask questions, so appreciate it. So with that, we're going to move into a fun section, and before that, we wanted to hear about your OPAL experience, Tyler, because it seems to have played an important role in this book.
Yeah, so I wish I knew more about photography to answer that question, something Terry and I can look into and include in later editions. But I do know a lot about opals. I grow opals. So I have a lab where I grow opals. And to me, opals are masters of color. They're these silica cubic lattices that let white light in and diffract it into all these colorful different flashes of color that are called fire or play of color. When you look at an opal and you rotate it, it changes color through every part of the visible light spectrum. And I grow these little photonic crystals. They're also called photonic crystals. I grow them in my lab, and the first time I ever grew an opal, I absolutely freaked out. I literally freaked out. It was one of the most fascinating things I had ever seen. I put it under the microscope, took a white light, rotated it, and I watched the light enter it, and through Bragg's law of diffraction, those particles literally separated the wavelengths. And it was like watching this sort of translator. I mean, if we're going to talk about color being communication, we have this white light that has all this hidden meaning, all these hidden colors that are mixed in there. And this opal was a literal translator. It showed me all these different fun little secrets hidden in white light. And I got to look at all the little specks. I saw this, and after like 2 years of research in opal synthesis, I was like, man, I know enough about color that I could probably write a book on it. And then I went to Terry and I was like, let's write a book on it.
How was that? How was those first few conversations from OPAL to?
It was exciting. We typically bounce crazy ideas off of each other. And, as soon as he started mentioning color, I had colors come to mind that we've had in our shop, like geology specimens and all kinds of things. We just immediately started building a list, and it accumulated pretty rapidly.
That's awesome. I love to hear the origin story, the roots of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in our next section, we would love to see some opal. And what we're going to do next to kind of warm us up to this next section, the folks online, I would recommend you kind of changing your position. The folks here, just kind of like remembering your body. We're going to do a little opal meditation. Because we're talking a lot, but we're going to have a little bit of silent moment and absorb and kind of think about all of this information. And yeah, just kind of take about 100 seconds as we think about the 100 colors to meditate and look at this beautiful opal that you grew.
That I grew.
Yes. So let's, take some time to watch the screen, maybe close your eyes, remember your body, and listen to some relaxing music. All right, thank you all. That was lovely. We just go in such fast pace, and thank you for keeping up with the pace, but also kind of slowing down and taking a moment, taking in where we are, the surroundings we have. And special thanks to Tiffany Costello. That was her music. She's a local musician. So yeah, Sessions in Place does amazing work with music. So we're really lucky to have beautiful music here as well. So yeah, thank you for participating in our reset. We're going to continue on to our next segment of learning with y'all. So we are going to talk about we're going to talk a little bit about the community and how you all built your community online, and how that's played into the book that you've been creating, and how it felt to have that as an audience, and to build almost together, not necessarily in a vacuum. Or how was it feel? How did it feel doing that?
I'd say we have multiple communities. So for me personally, we're obviously from Tulsa. We have our local community who's supported us from our very beginnings. So whenever I started the shop, it was totally experimental. People came out and supported it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, of all places, a science shop. And so that was really exciting. And then as we grew bigger, we got a lot of support from the scientific community. So we've worked with a lot of the biggest names in science, from Bill Nye and NASA and Vsauce, and you name it. We've met them and we've worked with them and collaborated them on big projects. And so the scientific community's really embraced us. And then we're just getting into the book community, and it's really exciting to be a part of all these different communities and see how well people respond.
Yeah, my community, I always say I have a very wholesome, kick-ass community. The people that come out to my shows and my talks are just literally some of the best people. It's very diverse. I love it. And my community came together, I would say really came together during the pandemic. And when I started seeing kind of what we're capable of. During the George Floyd murder and the protests, I released a shirt to raise funds to help protesters who were incarcerated or locked up during their protests. And we ended up selling over 10,000 shirts and raising over $70,000 to help free these protesters and to all these other causes. And it just kind of hit me holy crap, you can really get people together. And from there, this same community has supported all of my projects, including this book, and has embraced us as co-authors and helped make this book have a very successful launch. And we're just very excited to see how the community takes it now that it's in their hands, and how they sort of pave the way for this and hopefully a whole series of Universe and 100 Blanks, But community is very important. it's very important for authors, for artists, and it's our job to communicate to our community and use sort of our voices and our enthusiasm to help spark that community and bring people together. Yeah.
I love that. I think community is everything. I mean, it gets thrown around a lot, but even in the different ways you just talked about it, you have the community you built from specific time periods. You have the community of the scientists and everyone who came before that helped write the book. You know, that's something y'all both talk about in your thank yous that I found really powerful as well, because we all, like, when we gather, things can happen. You know, and that's something with us at Future Arts we do as well, is we try to bring folks together, bring spaces like this together, because with the internet and technology, we can really change a lot of things, especially in certain moments, or like in time, or in different urban environments like Seattle. So I just really love that. And I think that around the pandemic is when I found both of your works too. And it's been really cool to follow and like be sitting here now talking about it and see that you made a book. So it's really cool. Congrats too.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. And
super fun.
I am pretty damn proud of what we made.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Well, with our community, we're hoping that our future sparks will spark more of these kind of conversations. If you go to our website, and you'll see the way to become a member, so we'll talk about that in a bit. There's different ways you can support us. There's different things we're doing to bring things together. We have Seattle specifically, right, has the tech community, we have the arts community. We're still figuring out how to connect them to the best of our ability. I think there's something really special here, that if we as a community come together, we can change the way Seattle is seen around the world, and have artists come out here and do more work here, you know, because I think Seattle has just so much talent, and we don't always support that talent in the way we really should be supported. And I think the future is arts and creativity, you know, especially amidst technology, and especially using that technology for good, and remembering that the ultimate ancient technology is nature, which is what I loved about your book. So, yeah, if you all can after this check out the Sparks page on Future Arts and see how you can get involved. But I'd love to keep seeing everyone over and over again, and seeing how we can come together to change things, and to get more artists paid, to get more artists excited, and also to teach kids that phones aren't just for like getting away. It's actually a way to connect truly to each other, like all the community members that helped y'all. And these are tools, right? Technology needs to really reflect who we are, not define who we are. And I think this is your book, and the way you've built it is a great example of that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, most of our communities are online, and it's incredible what we can do from afar. So yeah, I would agree that phones can be a great way to connect if used properly. Yeah, I agree.
absolutely, like we're using here with Mentimeter. Anyway, so we have, speaking of Mentimeter, what aspects of this book sparks your curiosity the most so far from what we've talked about? Just in all of the language, in your meditation, what came up in your meditation? What other things do you want to hear about? What are words that are coming into your mind? Anything you want to share so far? Let's see what we got. Color and emotion. Structural, cultural aspect of color. We'll get into that soon a little bit more. What's catching y'all's eye as things come up?
Oh man.
I read extraterrestrial colors. Extra spectral colors.
Extra spectral colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our book does touch on colors and emotions that would be fun to talk about. We got 2 emotional colors I can think of right off the top of my head. The cultural aspect of colors, we have some cultural colors in there as well. Color has history. We have some historical colors. I mean,
Ton of historical.
should we just pick a couple and just dive
pick
in?
a couple.
All right,
Absolutely.
Terry, you go first.
Well, I guess I really like the story of Pompeii Red. So if we're going to shoot down history of colors, So the story is that in the year 79, the volcano of Vesuvius destroyed the city of Pompeii. And then as they were unearthing it during the 19th century, they started uncovering all these bright red frescoes painted around the city. And as they uncovered more and more, they became very iconic. And by the mid 20th century, you started seeing this being replicated around the world in wealthy households and in architecture and furniture. And it became what's called the Pompeian Renaissance. And you started seeing these bright red walls everywhere. And turns out, from some recent research, it turns out some of the colors may have actually been yellow, because now we know that yellow ochre, whenever heated extremely hot, will turn red, just like Pompeian red. And so some of the walls may have actually been yellow, but the volcano created this legacy, this legend of Pompeian red that we know today.
Wow. Thank you for that story. I feel like I traveled back in time. Is there any way we can show that image from the book? I know we've got some of them loaded in, but...
Yeah, it should be in the red
Pompeii
segment.
red, yeah.
Yeah, so our book is in grading order. And there's a whole bunch of reds, and somewhere probably smack dab in the Pompeian red's
Yeah, I think we have
pretty
it.
red. It's probably near the front of the reds.
Okay, let's see if we can pull it up somewhere in there to get the... awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and while we're looking for that, I can dive into one of them. So we have, let's see, the historical and cultural background of colors and landlord white. So we have one joke color in the book. It's landlord white. It's the average color of rental properties. I love landlord white because it is, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, I love landlord white because it's just weird that the average human rental shelter is this color. And it's this color because it's just off-white enough to cover up grime and the dirt of previous tenants and footprints and cigarette smoke, but it's also white enough to appear clean. I think it's just a little fascinating. And we do have some cultural colors. We have like Mayan blue, Egyptian blue. There are Scheele's green, which was a deadly arsenic-based compound during the Victorian era that killed a lot of workers, a lot of people in the working class who had to mix these pigments. Other cultural colors, there's lead white, where people would use it as a skin whitener, which we do have some commentary on white supremacy and how poisonous and dangerous it is when people would literally paint their faces to appear lighter, and they were literally poisoning themselves with lead. There's imperial yellow, and we have a couple of colors that were reserved for royalty, like imperial yellow, and also that image is from my sister-in-law's rental
Landlord
property, the
white.
house she was renting.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is landlord white.
I came over and I said, I'm going to photograph your windowsill, because this is bad. There's imperial yellow, Tyrian purple. These were colors that were reserved for the wealthy elite, the emperor. They were such rare, potent colors, and they required a lot of materials to make just like a gram of these colors. So we have a lot of cultural colors in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a couple more coming through, the ones you talked about. Let's see what we got. Imperial yellow, yeah.
Yeah, let's see, emotions of color. We have two emotional colors. We have Baker Miller pink, which is a pink that they used to paint prisons, thinking that this pink would subdue violent inmates.
Oh, yeah. Can we pull that one up? That's
Yeah,
a wild image.
that one's near the end of the book, and that was kind of like a toss-up study. It was like
Yeah, so the initial experiments that suggested this might be effective were a bit over-enthusiastic. We know that from modern replications, the more you do it, the more you get accurate results. And it turns out that it was probably more of just a novelty of seeing such a scary place painted in this bright pink color. And that sort of just probably just caught people off guard long enough to stop any violence from occurring.
That's a wild story. And just to think they're still pink now, right?
Yeah, they
So
didn't
there's
paint
all
them
these
back to
years.
gray or anything.
Yeah.
Those prisons are still pink.
We at least, that was kind of a fun fun fact for sure. We're going to try another thing called a pin drop. So we're going to pull up your beautiful table of contents on Mentimeter, and everyone can drop a pin on some of where you want to go next in the color spectrum. I love how y'all, yes? Oh, I heard something. I love the front of the book. Before you got into the colors, I wanted to ask kind of about how you set up the table of contents and the first part of
That's
the
all
book.
Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really wanted a creative way to show where everything was in the book, because we had to make up our own order of colors. So yeah, this was kind of my idea, to just show it in a 2D representation, so that you really could just plot it out. And if you wanted to go in the red section, there's all the page numbers where all the reds are. And it just made sense, and it turned out beautifully.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful book, really, seriously. Well, this is fun. It's nice to see. I imagine those little bubbles as all of you and all of the cloud people together in the color spectrum floating. So this is us. This is a map of us in the color spectrum. Yeah, so what we're going to do next, it looks like there's a lot of interest in kind of the violet area, pink area. So our team is going to start pulling up some color pages from these areas, and then we'll see what you have to say about those
Cool.
stories. All right, what you guys have for us back there? They're working on it.
Yeah, people really want to know about the violets and the magenta.
Well, now that we know they're not in the rainbow,
Yeah.
what is it?
I think,
Okay, here we go.
I really want to talk about magenta. Can we go straight to the magenta?
Oh, magenta.
Yeah.
All right, they're working on it.
Yeah, Terry and I, we love, yeah.
And then this is a fun one too. But okay, let's see what we got with the magenta. It's on its way. Here we go.
Yeah, you want to talk about magenta?
So if you look up magenta online, you'll see that there's a pretty intense debate about whether or not it exists. And it sounds ridiculous at first.
Myth busted.
But once you hear both sides, you may also debate with yourself about whether it really exists. So of course we can see it, we can perceive it. That's magenta. There's no arguing that. But it doesn't have a wavelength. It turns out magenta is fabricated by your brain whenever it sees blue and red at the same time. So the image you're seeing, the object that was photographed wasn't magenta, but your brain created magenta, and that's how you see it. So in a way, it doesn't really exist, but since we can perceive it, something exists. So there's a toss-up there.
I'm feeling very existential right now. Is anyone else feeling existential? I'm like, are we here? Are we just sleeping right now? Like, where are we?
It brings up an interesting, I think, question and debate about color. Like, it doesn't have a wavelength, but we perceive it. And I don't know. It brings up the conversation, like, does it actually exist, and does it exist because humans can experience it? Where do we define existence, Where does that line end? Or does the line even matter? Can we just say it's we can see it, it's here?
Who says things exist? Like, what is existence?
Oh,
like,
Lord.
We're getting, okay, maybe we fell off a little there. Bring it back. Okay.
Let's pull up a specific color.
pull up
I like Tyrian purple. Since people want to hear about the purples and magentas, let's go to Tyrian purple. Tyrian purple is a very interesting color, yeah. So this was a hard image to find. This was a really hard one to find because there aren't many examples of Tyrian purple that exist. It's a very rare dye that is made from crushing 10,000 or more predatory sea snails. You have to kill and crush 10,000 predatory sea snails to make a gram of this dye. And any fabric that is dyed with Tyrian purple fetches its weight in silver, the fabric itself. It's so rare that the Roman emperor was the only one allowed to don Tyrian purple, this color. Imagine a color so rare and so potent that only the most powerful person in your community could wear it. What's really cool is there's a group of scientists that we cover in the book that found a way to synthesize Tyrian purple without having to kill 10,000 sea snails. And they tricked the bacteria into producing the molecule that is Tyrian purple. And then they centrifuge this bacteria to little pellets that are Tyrian purple. They literally just tricked bacteria into producing the molecule that is Tyrian purple without having to kill sea snails to do it. So it's really cool. We have, and there are some references to colors that have harmed animals in history. So there is some content warning there, and this is one of them. But its cultural significance is pretty important in terms of color history.
What if they killed 100 snails? Like, how did they know that it was so many?
I just want to say they just kept going. It's not funny.
Yeah, I'm focusing on the ingenuity of humankind and how we use technology to not harm animals. Look at that.
It's amazing. It is amazing. There are some really kick-ass scientists that are doing some really incredible work and trying to find ways that we don't have to harm and destroy nature to chase the beautiful colors that we love.
Absolutely. I love that. That's the best turnaround of that story. As someone who breeds snails, like I'm an aquascaper, so I have a lot of aquariums.
Oh, cool.
When I heard this story and read this story, I was like, yeah, you just don't think where color pigment comes from usually on a day-to-day basis. So, this is not the first color where you had to kill things to get the color. And lots of other stories in here aren't necessarily happy stories. There are a lot of like complexities in how we derive color, which is wild.
Yeah, I would say like 10, 15% of the colors have been harmful or have harmed things.
Yeah, for sure.
We kept it below half. We wanted an uplifting book, but
I mean,
there are some things you got to
reality.
cover.
You got to be real with things. Yeah. Okay, I am coming into the audience now. So it's that time. Questions. I see some hands up already, so I'm going to come around and ask some questions. I'll go from left to right. So, hello. Hi. Gabo, I'm going to come over here and hang out with you and then have you ask a question of our wonderful guest.
Hi. My name is Gabriel. My question focuses on the sort of emotion of colors. There's this sort of path of like synesthesia where colors are sort of part of various emotional and like sensorial experiences. What was some thought processes around emotion and synesthesia when creating this book / like how does that influence your own understanding of like how people perceive colors, especially like not just beyond like the colorblind folks, but like also people who just absorb colors in such an emotional way? Like how does that reflect in the book and like in the work that you do?
It's a great question. We don't really cover synesthesia in it because there's not a lot of research that is kind of conclusive. There's a lot of people who claim they have it and they don't, and there's a lot of really fun studies where people are kind of proven like they don't have it when they say like certain sounds have color to them, and they'll play the same note but in different octaves, and they experience different colors. And it's like, well, it's been kind of debunked with a lot of people. We do cover emotional aspects of color, but not without diving into research. And there was a study done on the most calming color in the world, and it was deemed navy blue was considered the most calming color in the world. But again, it's all kind of subjective, right? Like it's hard to write a scientific book when on a topic like emotion and color when it's also subjective, and different cultures and different people have different experiences to certain colors, or some colors are deemed more like taboo, some colors are considered more sacred or pure, some are used for weddings and love and intimacy, and that varies from person to person and culture to culture. So we don't touch on that a whole lot because we try to stick to studies and like hard facts, but it is a really wide conversation that does get brought up when we say, oh, we have a book on color. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna continue going, and I love seeing everyone's faces. There's artists here, there's community members, people I'm just really happy to see everyone, and I'm curious what other questions you might have as I come around. Oh yeah, Kira has a question.
Hi, my name's Kira.
Hi.
You mentioned that there are things that you left out of your book around like specific colors that are taboo. Can you give us kind of some insight into that and maybe some controversy? Like spill the tea a little bit.
You got some tea?
Tea is my favorite.
Taboo colors. Brown.
Yeah.
My first thought is a color known as Pantone 448C. So it's not exactly taboo, but it's the first one that comes to mind because it was voted the ugliest color in the world. And if you look at it, it's kind of a putrid brown, and it's gross. But it was specifically, the vote was done, yes, that color.
It's baby poop.
Yes,
I
I've been
have a baby.
corrected. It's baby poop. So they did a survey to find which color was the ugliest, specifically so that in Australia, so they could color all cigarette carton packages with that color in effort to try to make smoking repulsive. And I think it worked to some extent because other countries started replicating this coloring on their packages and stuff. And yeah, that's one that didn't make it into the book, but I'll always remember because we did the research and it just was fascinating.
Yeah, there's not too many taboo. I mean, we didn't put the dress in there because we figured that was mulled over, and we thought it would be funny to bring it up here. I learned that we're on two opposite ends of that. I'm still reeling about that. And like synesthesia, there's a lot of people who claim to have it, and so I didn't feel like we should put that in there and have a bunch of people write in going, oh my God, I can taste colors and stuff. And I was like, you probably don't. You probably can't. But there's not, if it was taboo in a way that was fascinating, we would put it in the book. I don't know if there's any color where no, we can't write about this. If we felt that way, we're probably going to write about it. Yeah.
I wanted to, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe Vanta Black.
Vanta Black, yeah.
It brings up a lot of controversy.
Yeah, artists hate Vanta Black. This is dark, rich black made from carbon nanotubes. And Anish Kapoor came in, used his power and influence, and pretty much got his nasty, grubby grip on a color that no one else can use. Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to just say it from a creative standpoint. What are you going to do with Vanta Black? Just make things solid black? There's not a whole lot of applications beyond making something 3D look flat, and that's kind of the end of it. And he did that, and that's the end of that. But yeah, he just kind of gobbled it up, and I think a lot of artists kind of hate Vanta Black for that reason.
That's super wild. All right, who else has a question for our lovely humans? Okay, I'm coming over there, but let's start.
Throw the mic at him.
All right, coming over here. Okay, I'm gonna squeeze through. All right.
Hey, thanks so much for doing the work that you do, guys. I had a question. Was there a color that you didn't necessarily... I'm very interested in color and emotion. I'm thinking about Inside Out and how each of their emotions have a color, and I never thought about that until we're talking about it right now. Was there a color that you found in your book that after writing it and researching it, you had an emotion towards that you kind of didn't expect to have?
That is a good question.
I would say one for me was blue in terms of food. So I'd always heard the unappetizing blue myth that humans are naturally repulsed by blue foods, that foods that are blue might be too unnatural because they don't really exist in nature, or it might look like mold or something. And they did some experiments back in the day to try to test that. And just like with the Baker Miller pink, that was ultimately proved kind of hyperbolic. And so after doing a lot of research, ultimately I found out that that was all pretty much another myth. And I'd always heard that, and I'd always like kind of regurgitated the info. Oh, did you know people don't like to eat blue foods because it's repulsive? And yeah, now I don't do that anymore because it's not true.
Can we pull up that image? Because that's one that's pretty
It is
fun.
unappetizing. My color, I'm not a fan of orange. But after having worked on this book, I have a lot of appreciation for orange and the fact that it is a very hard color to produce and have it be true. A lot of orange pigments break down under UV light and they turn like a muddied brown or like sort of like a reddish orange. So we have some colors like orpiment and stuff like that that are like potent, bright oranges and reddish oranges. And unfortunately, some of the most steadfast oranges are some of the deadliest, made from like arsenic and like real gar and stuff like that. So I have a lot of appreciation for oranges, only in the sense, I just don't like oranges, but in the sense that to produce a really potent, powerful orange, a lot of scientific engineering had to go down to make one that doesn't just break down into brown under UV light. Yeah.
Awesome. We have one last question over here, and then we're going to continue, but there will be more opportunities. I think Terrence had a question.
Thank you for not throwing the microphone. I appreciate it. My name's Terrence. I actually don't have a question about color specifically, but process, because the book's gorgeous. And you mentioned, I'm a photographer, so among other things, but you mentioned going to your sister's place or sister-in-law to get that one picture. Are there any other fun stories like that? I want to know, like, what was the hardest picture you got, and like maybe the most fun one, or something like that. Just about that process of getting all these photographs because they're beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So we sourced a lot of the images from different scientific communities or like different scientific photographers, and like a lot of the celestial stuff we had to source from like NASA. There are a handful that I shot. A lot of the filler images are like iridescent beetles and butterflies were from my own collection. The most fun image to shoot, I think, is the filament entry, which is the dead brown leaf color. And that was fun, because I was like, how do I photograph dead leaves to make them interesting? Like, everything in this book is like macro, crunchy, up close, juicy. And I was like, how can I make a dead leaf look good? I think I nailed it.
We got to see the sleeve. What's it called?
So it's filament, or I'm going to pronounce it wrong because I have only written it. I've never said it out loud. It's entry 21 on page 49.
There we go. We can get it pulled up. I thought this was a really good color for right now as the leaves are dying, and we had our altar leaf today. It's not quite to the filament, but it's, or fui mort.
I've never said it out loud. I wrote this book, and I wrote that in isolation. I never said it out loud. But also filament.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I used my wife's camera and her macro lens and got really up close, and I think it gets the image across and the picture across while also like kind of inviting you in to look closer. And it's more about the texture and the story rather than like, oh, here's just a leaf. That one was really interesting. I didn't want to just shoot a flat leaf. Another one is the Lotharia vulpina, which is the wolf lichen. And that one is in my opinion, one of the best images in the book. And I got really close up there in this web of licheny arms and like the chartreuse. That one.
Pull that up.
Yeah, it's like near in between the yellows and the greens. Right there, yeah. Entry 48.
103, page 103.
And it just looks like coral, kind of. And there's just a lot of really yummy, juicy textures in there. And that one was one I had to get really close into. I think it's one of the more powerful images in the book. So those two are my favorite, also the most challenging. Because from afar, they're kind of boring, but how do you make them interesting up close?
Yeah, the depth of all the colors is quite beautiful. And I also loved when going through here. I mean, like, think about the scale just between what I flipped about. Like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Somehow you made this work, and somehow you created your own order. Like, that to me is pure artistry.
Yeah, thank you.
Just that. How you looked at the world and you were able to organize it in a certain way and add emotion to it and add structure to it and all that. And how, like, when you hold this and know that there's like planets inside and there's lichen inside, like,
and Landlord White.
And Landlord White, of course. How did it feel when you like first got this and you were like, there's so much scale in here, like if you were to blow this out?
It was unreal.
I couldn't believe it. It was weird. You work on something so long, and Terry and I, as we were the only correspondence we had was over the book. I don't even think we were checking in with each other. It was like literally like, have you done this? Have we done this? How far? Like, it was just book talk, and then it's done, and you hold it, and I was just like, oh, this is it. It's just like this big 2 years of just constant delving, and then it's like, boop, book. And it's really weird. It's just kind of like the curtains close, and you're like, oh my God, we did all this, and it's right here. It's just a book. And I sat with it for a long time, like, oh, I made this. It kind of came back. I was like, oh, I made this. Oh my God, holy crap. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah.
That's so wild. I think that's a really interesting point to start kind of winding down the talk, simply because what we talked about here is process, and what you just mentioned is the product of that process. And so it makes me really think of like when we're doing an art project, right? A lot of times when we go to like a gallery or whatnot, and you do all kinds of other art, and Terry, you've got all kinds of like sciencey specimen meteorites and such like that in your boxes. Like that is a piece, that is an object that we interact with. Someone looks at in a gallery, but I'm always really fascinated at everything we talked about leading up to that, the process. That's the juicy, delicious stuff, right? That's why we do art, because we exist and time slows down and we're here and we're present and we're like in the cloud, we're here, we're there, and it's that process. That's life, I guess. There's our existential wrap. So yeah, like, is there any kind of closing thoughts or whatnot on everything we talked about, and what you want to tell folks out there that are artists or wanting to start a process maybe?
Yeah, I have a few closing thoughts, and then I'd love to hear what Terry's closing thoughts are. I just hope that people view color the way I do, the way I felt when I first grew opal, and I was like, oh my God, this completely changes how I view color. How excited I was to even think about color from that point on. I hope people go through this book and they have a deeper appreciation for the world around us, all the way from the ends of the galaxy and the cosmos to, the dead leaves in our front yard. They're connected. To me, they're on the same grand scale. And I just hope people see that connection and see the hard work that we put in and draw those same conclusions.
Yeah, I totally agree. All the work that we do outside of this project and inside is just to show how interconnected everything is in the universe. I like to remind people, like, you're not just in a universe, you literally are a piece of the universe, like thinking about itself. And so everything that we do at our shop and in the book is just to show that connection. Everything from the raw minerals to the meteorites and even the landlord white, it's all made of matter, and matter is just a fraction of what's available in the universe. And the universe is a huge, massive place. So who knows what else is possible?
Well, we'll have to see what you have coming up next. I know you've got lots of ideas. So it's been so fun to learn from you, learning and only knowing that we're scratching the surface with what's out there. So definitely check out the book. We'll post links and all the things, everyone who's out there. Even here, we're going to have a little reception and look at the book and, learn more and more and more. So that's going to be, I suggested. I had a good time. And it really does change the way you just walk through the world, because you want to know, like, what's emitting, like, what's the structure. And then it makes you, I don't know, like, there's a permission there to go and make something out of these colors, right? Go think about the technology of nature and how to apply that to the technology that we have with us in the world today. So yeah, I appreciate you guys for chatting and for creating something so beautiful. I mean,
Thank you.
It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the audience.
Thank you.